Are you going to pull this out in the middle of a fight?
Maybe. Maybe.
Wait a minute. Let me go get my paper. And
Why
so,
I'm feeling that way, not why
right.
they made me. This is Rhea, and this is Just the Who of Us, where we talk about a range of topics, including life events, current events, spirituality, entertainment, family relationships, as well as answering listener questions and more. Today with us, we have a return guest, Mr. Martin Salama.
First thing is, I want to say I'm so sorry for your loss of your dad. I can imagine how you're feeling. I'm so sorry. How you doing?
Is that an answer?
Yeah, no, it is. It is. It's like every day is a different day. Every minute's a different minute. Oh, I get it.
Yeah. It's been a process. I feel like I've had all the steps of grief like in like 1 week and then kind of started over. So I understand what happened now.
Uh,
I had this point kind of like maybe a couple weeks ago. I was just laying in my bed and I was like, I think he's actually like just still in the hospital. I don't think that any of that happened. Like it happened so fast, It was like, I don't even think that really happened. Maybe it was a bad dream. It wasn't. So
right.
my part of my family, we practice dark humor. And so, I've gotten to the point where I'm able to kind of joke about it from time to time. So
Okay. All right.
progress, I guess.
Yeah, it's all part of the healing process. It's going to take a while.
Yeah.
And when you need to cry, cry. Don't let anybody tell you it's not okay. It's totally okay.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I'm a person who tries to I realized this about myself a while back that I really try to not be emotional, and I still catch my time from time to time being like, okay, sorry, cut it out kind of thing. But it's definitely something that I've been trying to remind myself, like, hey, you don't need to do that. Allow these
Yeah.
feelings to be felt, because if not, it's gonna hurt longer. So
Yeah, it's going to hurt longer. It's going to show up in different ways. You'll have resentment towards others.
mhm.
There's many, many things that'll come as a result of it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
So what's been up with you other
Uh,
than being in Vegas?
well, I like I said, I'm here for business. Last week I was in San Francisco for vacation, so we had fun there.
Okay.
And I actually posted a picture of myself wearing a T-shirt that said "Live Fully" that I found in a Jewish community center. It just happened to be that that's their motto. I'm like, hello, I have to have
Really?
it.
Right. How perfect.
Uh, we had a lot of fun there. I went with my wife and her kids on winter vacation. So yeah, we've had a nice time, and things are going good. And started doing a little more social media stuff now, and I have a couple more people on my team, so it's all exciting.
February, my focus is relationships. However, not in the traditional February romantic sense.
It's good. We can do that totally. Having conversations instead of confrontations.
Oh, okay. Last time we talked mindset.
Right.
So I
So we
think
can
that,
talk about
yeah.
about building your emotional strength.
Yeah, I like that. Yeah.
Okay, so I have a card on that. My
Okay,
card says.
perfect. So today we're going to be talking about building emotional strength so that you can control your emotions instead of your emotions controlling you. Our focus is relationships, but not necessarily just romantic relationships. However, this advice can be used in your romantic relationships, your familiar relationships, even your professional relationships, realistically, because in all of those scenarios, we can sometimes let our emotions take over, and we can end up arguing instead of having conversations, having confrontations instead of conversations. And so
Right.
as part of the card deck that is available in the information below. So Martin, I'm gonna let you take that.
Okay. Well, Ray, thank you so much. I'm happy to be back here with you again. And I just want to acknowledge online that my thoughts and prayers are with you and your family in this time as you're going through a difficult time losing your dad. I know what it's like to lose your dad. I lost my dad about 20 years ago.
Mm,
Even though he was 76, to me, he was way too young to be going. Uh,
right. Yeah.
and
I appreciate that.
Yeah, and we all have those feelings when we're going through this of so many waves of emotions coming over you at any time. So I just want to tell you that at this moment, I'm thinking of you and your family.
I really, really appreciate that. And that is relevant too, because that was also a relationship.
Right.
And this information could also be helpful
Yeah.
for dealing with that kind of thing as well. So
Yeah. Yeah. So as we talked in the past, in the last time we spoke, my I always had a very short temper.
mhm.
And that came from me being a people pleaser, me having to be a control freak and taking everything personally. All those things are intertwined together. And now I could happily say I'm a recovering people pleaser, as it were. But part of that was is that I was always finding myself in confrontations instead of conversations. And that was because I always felt like I had to be right. And if I had to be right, then I was going to keep going no matter what the cost was, no matter what I would have to do later. And oftentimes it would end up in a negative situation. And I would have to come back and apologize. And even those I didn't do correctly, I'd say, I'm sorry for what happened, but this was going on or that was
Right.
going on, or you pushed my buttons. As
Yeah.
soon as you start saying those things, it's not really an apology.
Right.
It's justifying your actions. That it's okay for you to treat that other person with a certain amount of disrespect,
Right. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Even
Absolutely.
if you don't look at it and you're like, but what about my respect? And you got to recognize that you can't demand respect. You
Mm,
have to command respect. And the way you command respect is by giving respect to others. And if they don't give it back to you, then they're not someone that should be in your life. And
oh,
I mean that from
yes.
anybody, you know, and it's not about saying, F you, I don't want to have a conversation with you anymore
Right.
because you don't want to respect me. You just say, look, in a nice way, instead of us fighting all the time, we have two choices. We can either work this out or just not continue to have conversations with each other. And it takes a lot of inner strength for you to be able to say that in a calm way.
Yes, yes. One thing my mom used to say to me when I was probably mostly a teenager that I absolutely hated, but it's one of those things that I found myself saying as a mom. uh, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. Me with
Absolutely.
my teenage attitude, everything was an eye roll and a sassy response.
Right.
Even if my response appropriately would have been valid, it kind of took it away its validity because of the way that I delivered the message. And so yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. 100% true. And it's also the delivery of the information. Okay.
Mhm.
Even if you're saying the right words, the way you say it is also important. The
Mhm.
emotion behind it can charge the other person,
Yeah,
negatively charge them,
it's
right?
true.
So imagine if somebody comes up to you and they're ready to fight and you stay calm. What's going to happen with that other person if you stay on the calm level the entire time? Eventually, they're going to figure out, wait a minute, there's something wrong here. I need to
Mhm.
bring myself down because they're not bringing themselves up,
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
right?
100%.
Yeah. So this is a lot of where I took the word life again and created another acronym using a four-step system. But let me give you a little bit of a background on where that came from so
Hmm.
that it helps you. So very often I would be the one that needed to make sure that everything was right. So and for years, and I can look back now and realize how negative of an impact I was having, not only on myself, on my ex-wife, on my children. It was just because I just thought I was right and I needed to do it. I would get into lecture mode and I would just talk, 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 talk until that person finally broke down. And now looking back, it was just me puffing myself up,
Hmm.
making sure that I was going to get what I needed to get out of this so that I walked away better for it, not caring about what anybody else did. And that's important. Of course, you want to make sure that you're feeling you're heard and all that, but not at the expense of others. That's the difference.
Right, right. Not projecting onto other people.
Right. And just to give you an example, last week I was having a conversation with someone who is now becoming part of my team. And I said to her, this is not a dictatorship. It's not that what I say goes. You're part of my team. You're part of my mastermind. And if anybody's read the book Think and Grow Rich, you know that Napoleon Hill is very strong on this whole mastermind thing, having a group of people around you, like-minded people who feel that they can tell you when they disagree with you, but in a way that's constructive instead of destructive. And I said to her, you're allowed to say, I don't like the way this was written. You're not allowed to say, I don't like the way you wrote this.
Oh, okay.
Right? Because you're not attacking the person.
Yeah.
You're attacking the subject matter. And you're not really attacking it, you're addressing it.
Right.
Right? So she's like, what do you mean? I said, you could come into our room at any time in our Zoom and say how you feel, as long as you don't attack the person, as long as you understand that we're all here, number one. And number two, you'll see that nobody's attacking anybody, because the way we say it is, I like the way this is done, but I think it could be better if we do this, this, and this. So now, as I was going through my divorce, and I look back as going through the divorce and life coaching at the same time, which we talked about last time, it was a time for me to be more reflective as to what was working and, more importantly, what wasn't working. And it was there that I recognized that I had that short temper, and I took things personally and realized that I was a people pleaser. That was the catalyst for everything else that was going on.
Right.
For example, and this I'll go in deeper when I go further into it, going through the 4 steps. For example, my wife used to say to me, I don't want to fight, but. Now, what that did was that hit the button. She just pushed my hot button, because in my head, I went, ding, ding, ding. Let's get ready to rumble.
Yeah.
Not
I don't want to fight, but we're going to.
Right. Not physically,
yeah.
but, verbally. And at the end of the day, so that would be in my head, okay. She'd tell me the thing, I would already be charged, and I'd start freaking out. And then she'd say, but I told you I didn't want to fight, and you just started the fight. Well, whether she did that consciously, subconsciously, it's not about her. It's about me.
Right.
I'm not looking to blame her for that. For me, it's I didn't recognize that in a deep down level, she really was saying, I don't want to fight. Okay. But I already knew after 25 years that this is what was going to happen.
Right.
So as I went through coaching, I recognized that as something. So I started to build up, and I conditioned myself and her, kind of like Pavlov's dog. You ever heard the psychologist thing about, you teach the dog the way to do things, and they'll change the way they do things.
Yeah.
Right. So you teach yourself the way to do things, and you'll change the way. And if you teach the people around you, whether it's consciously or subconsciously, they'll change the way they do things too.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So back in those early days, when I was getting divorced, and still a part of me was in that world of, I don't want to get divorced. And I was afraid about that, because it had to do with my own self-esteem, my lack of self-worth, and all that, and a fear that nobody would ever love me again, and recognizing now that I didn't love myself. So how could anybody love me?
That's such a profound thing, because I can relate to that through my own divorce. I mean, me and my ex-husband, we didn't legally divorce for many years after we officially separated. And part of it was kind of like, well, we're not going to be getting married anytime soon, so we'll just get to it whenever, kind of thing. But I think that realistically, I think that it was difficult. It was more difficult to do over time, because we repaired our relationship. And though we realized that as a married couple, we weren't successful. However, this current relationship that we have now, we can be successful at it. It's changing our perspective and things like that. what kind of relationship do we have now? Well, if we get legally divorced, is that going to change that? Or, and those kinds of things. And it just, it's a mindset thing,
Right.
and
Exactly.
and most of the time something like that, it's failure.
Yep.
And that's a fear, fear of failure for sure. And
No question.
we had to realize, like, hey, if our relationship is what it is, it's going to be that regardless. We haven't been together at this point. I don't know. I think it was like 7 years or something like that. Since we officially split, we weren't intimate and all those kind of things. And our relationship is the same. It's the same as it was before, the day we signed those papers. And I'm glad, because he's a really good friend to have. But it's you think divorce and you think failure, and it doesn't necessarily have to be the failure of that relationship, because I think our relationship is more successful now than it was when we were married, 20-something-year-old idiots trying to bumble through life,
Exactly. I could say the same thing because, for me, it was having that failure of a marriage that I didn't want. I mean, because then I'd be looked at as a failure along with every other failure that I was going through in my life. So I was
Right.
like,
And there's that too. Yeah. Yeah.
and you start worrying what everybody else is thinking about you.
Mm-hmm.
So there's so much we can uncover from all that.
Yeah.
So, but I don't think we have 10 hours here. So guys, you'll have to come back. But on this subject, so I needed to learn how to stop having confrontations, not just with my wife. I've been focusing on that, but I had that with everybody. And I didn't realize how many people I alienated as a result of it. Because on the outside, I'm a great guy, all that, very gregarious and charismatic and easy to light up a room and whatever. But when you got to know me more, you're like, no, this guy's got a whole nother side to him,
Mm.
and it's like take it or leave it. you know. So it was about me recognizing that that's not the way I could be. So I came up with this 4 steps to help me learn to move that needle into it being, instead of being like the Geiger counter where it's going to all the time, going off the edge, to
Yeah.
being
Me in my 20s for sure.
right, exactly, like the radioactivity of it.
Yes. Yes.
So I took the word life and I changed it around for the words to make sense for me. And it's about recognizing how your emotions are affecting you, because I look at emotions and feelings as something different. The emotion is the thing that happens in the moment. I'm angry, I'm happy, I'm sad, whatever it is. The feelings are the underlying things that are going on.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. For example, what kind of anger are you? Are you enraged or you're just a little ticked off? Right. There's different levels of anger. So I have this chart. I'll give it to them free to connectwithmartin.com.
Okay.
There'll be a link there for them to download the things that I'm going to talk about so that they can look at it a little closer. And one of them is a chart across the top of the emotions, and down underneath each one is a list of the feelings of the kinds of, so that you could use this to learn. And now, are you going to pull this out in the middle of a fight? Of course not.
Maybe.
Wait a minute. Let me go get my paper.
We're going to look at this chart.
Probably not. Look what you're doing. It's not about them. The more you control your emotions, the more they can't control your emotion.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Right? So the number 1 is L. Listen to your inner voice and acknowledge your feelings / emotions. Right? So your inner voice is saying, I'm really mad. I'm really angry right now. Mm-hmm. Okay. Recognize it.
Yeah.
And acknowledge it. Don't say, whatever, I'll figure it out later, because you're not going to.
Right.
Right. And in the moment, what I'm saying is you'll go back and look at this conversation or this confrontation that you had and say, okay, how can I do better next time? Because what we're talking about here is basically muscle memory for your emotions. Just like you learn when you're exercising, how the right way to do a push-up, how the right way to do a curl or whatever, a bicep curl.
Yeah.
It becomes muscle memory so that your muscles know the right way to do it. So what's wrong with having an emotional muscle memory or a mental muscle memory?
Yeah, true.
So it's about recognizing it the first time, second time as you're going along and getting better at it as you go along. So then number 2 is identify your feelings, right? Number 1 was I'm mad, I'm angry. Number 2, take out the chart and look, what kind of anger am I, right? And then number 3, find out why. Question your feelings. Why am I feeling this? Did that person hurt me? Did they help me? What's going on? And it's not about saying to them, Rhea, what'd you do to me? It's inner work, okay? And recognizing the way it's feeling and
why I'm feeling that way, not why they made me. Yeah.
Right. And then number 4 is the E, engage in change and take action. Now, that doesn't mean you take action right then. It means you set up a plan for yourself. So I talked about my ex, I talked about me and how it was. So I ended up developing this while I was going through coaching, while I was going through my divorce. And it became something that I started teaching my clients, coaching my clients around. But like with most things with coaching, the people don't care what you're telling them unless you understand that you totally understand it yourself. And it's something you've experienced and you've worked out.
Right.
Yourself. Because otherwise it's just, okay, read a book, a textbook on how I utilized it as my relationship progressed with my ex. And then I use it for it in many situations when I start to feel this way, not just romantic, because we weren't having a romantic relationship at that time. She was my ex-wife. So now we're divorced about 2 years. Okay. And my son, which reminds me, I have to tell him today, this in real life, today is my son's anniversary. So I have to tell him happy anniversary.
Oh, nice. Okay.
Yeah, he's married 10 years.
Wow.
But it was coming up to my son's wedding. Okay. Now I come from an Orthodox Jewish community, and in our community, we have a custom, not everybody does it, of the Saturday before you go to synagogue on Shabbat, which is a holy day, as you know, and afterwards there's a lunch for the bride and groom before the wedding, like a little thing. So at this time, I was living in New York, and my ex and my children were still living in New Jersey. My son was coming back and forth because he was going to school in New York or finishing school, and living with me part of the time. And so I had thought we had decided we weren't going to do this because money was tied to the relationship and all that. Sunday, my son comes back from New Jersey. He says, Dad, I am so embarrassed. I am so sorry. Mom made a lunch yesterday and you weren't there. And now the old me would have freaked out on him and picked up the phone and freaked out on her.
Yeah.
Who the heck do you think you are? What the heck?
Yeah.
I said, my son's name is Caesar. I said, Caesar, it's not on you. Thank you for telling me. I'll take care of it. So now number 1, I'm listening to him. I'm freaking out inside.
Right.
I'm angry and I'm enraged. Okay. So I'm writing this stuff down and I'm forming a plan as to what. So now I start questioning, why am I feeling this? Well, I'm feeling this because she still feels that she has ways of controlling me. And she still feels like it's okay for her to control the narrative. Right. And I got to figure out for her to understand that it's not all about her and it's not all about making me look bad and the children looking and not giving me the respect as a father that I deserve. Again, commanding respect, not demanding.
Right. Yeah.
I said to myself, it's Monday. The wedding is Wednesday. What do I gain by calling up right now and beating the crap out of her over the phone?
Yeah.
I'll be upset. She'll be upset. My son will be, my future daughter-in-law, my family will find out about it. My kids, there'll be a cloud over the entire wedding.
Yeah.
The old me would have said, I don't give a flying freak.
Right.
I'm doing this.
Because that's how I feel in the moment and I'm going to let it out.
That's it.
Yeah.
And who would have benefited from that? Maybe my ego. That's about it.
Yeah.
I wouldn't have. In the long term, I definitely would not have. My ego at that moment would have been placated. I'm going to wait. So we went to the wedding. It was a beautiful wedding, beautiful. Everything was great for that. So now it's Friday. It's 2 days after the wedding. I call her up and I say, listen, this is what you did. What you did was so on and so forth. And the message you were sending to our children was, I don't matter. What I say and do doesn't mean anything. I'm just a piece of crap on the floor. And I did this in a controlled anger. Okay. The difference of just flying off the handle.
Yeah.
I prepared myself. I actually went to a family member and went through it with them to say, let's make sure I'm saying the right things here. And here is the beautiful thing. And I can look back now and say that this was a defining moment. Because don't forget, I said I was always had that thing of feeling like I didn't want to be divorced and all that for whatever the reasons were.
Mm-hmm.
But I ended it by turning to her and saying, thank you for divorcing me. Because at that moment, I realized we were never right together. We had many good years. We have 4 beautiful children and 8 grandchildren and all that today. As of today, we have 8 grandchildren.
Mm-hmm.
But we were probably never should have been married in the first place, even with all those good years. And it's not about me and it's not about her. It's just about we were not the right fit for each other. And we would be called, if we got back together after fixing each other ourselves, let's say, on our own, eventually we'd go back to who we were together. And we'd be back in a codependent relationship.
Right. Right.
And that moment was for me to recognize, okay, I've got to move forward. So I took it, and it was a confrontation, but it was a necessary one. And today we have conversations.
Fabulous. That's great. Yeah. I can relate to that. I definitely can relate to that, to the difference between then and now, between my ex-husband and I then and now. Like, we have conversation. I mean, he will call me just to kind of like vent about life or, whatnot, where before, obviously, like, we wouldn't have called each other for anything positive,
Right.
I mean, we didn't spend a lot of time like being hateful to one another. It's just, there was a point of time where we wouldn't have called each other for anything that wasn't kid related. And sometimes we didn't even call each other then.
Right. I mean, we have 4 children together. We have 8 grandchildren. The families are continuing to grow. That we will always have some sort of a relationship.
Right.
It's not the thing of where we got married. We were married for a few years, never had any children. She goes one way, I go the other way. Never to the two ever have anything to do with each other again. It's
right.
But it took me a long time to recognize that I needed to, and it wasn't about her, and it wasn't about what she was saying. It was about me telling myself a story that I could be the best I can be without being. And I never talked. I can't say negative. Never. I 95% of the time did not speak negatively to her, about her to my children. I can't say 100% because there are times where my kids would say something to me that would have triggered me, and still sometimes it happens. Mom said this and this. I go, well, you don't know the whole story.
Well, yeah.
Look, and my point out here is to tell everybody, I'm not looking for you to be perfect.
Right.
It's not, there's no such thing as perfection. Am I perfect like this all the time? Hell no.
Right.
Hell to the no. Right. I am not.
It takes, I mean, no one's perfect. Literally. You can't be, right? Like, we're human beings. We're naturally flawed. And, we can be the best version of ourselves. We can be the worst version of ourselves. We can be constantly in progress, but literally no one is perfect. And if they think they are,
no, that was part of my problem with my first marriage. Is I always felt that she was wanting me to be perfect. Whether it's true or not, I'll never know, because I'll never have that. I don't need to have that conversation with her now.
Right.
Not that I'll never. I just don't need to.
Yeah, it's not necessary. Yeah, but that's important for us to acknowledge sometimes too, especially when it comes to maybe relationships that used to be one thing and are now something else. Or sometimes relationships that have been the same type of relationship for a really long time, but we evolve and grow as people constantly, or we should be anyway.
Yeah, 100%.
So
So yeah, so it's all good. It's all good, and we'll always have connections. Right? We have a daughter who's 24 years old, who's on the spectrum, but high on the spectrum. And I'm very proud to say, because of the work I've done on myself and the work she's done on herself, as well as my daughter has done on herself,
Mhm.
started college 2 weeks ago. And
Oh
that
my
was that was
gosh.
a big thing for all of us, for her to get to that point. It's her
Yeah.
development of becoming more of an independent person. She's got a lot of things to do, and
Mhm.
she recognizes it. And thank God she is where she is. And a lot of that had to do with mine and her mother's relationship with each other getting better, and her
Yeah.
recognizing that we're a team, all of us,
Yes.
in her development.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that I experienced with my relationship with my ex too, because we only have two children biologically together. However,
Mhm.
I had my son at barely 15. I had my daughter at 18. We got married at 20 and 21. So, those children were small. They still to this day consider him to be their stepdad.
Right.
And though, you know, my oldest son knows his father, doesn't have the best relationship with him because of his father's actions.
Right.
My oldest daughter, unfortunately, has never met her father. Um, by his choice, and they love my fiance. They've known him most of their life. He and
Right.
I went to high school together, so I knew him before I knew my ex-husband. But long story short, they love him, but they still consider my ex-husband to be their stepfather because
It's okay.
that's who they grew up around. And yeah, I'm totally fine
We're
with
in a
that.
different world.
Absolutely.
Blended families are totally accepted,
Yeah,
as they should be, and
absolutely.
understanding that there are people that are coming in and out of your life, as long as they all love each other, they
Yes.
love the people, and they don't try to force themselves on anybody in any
Right.
way.
Right.
By
Right.
that, or
Yeah.
force their will, I should say.
Yeah.
That's where the things come into play, where things can get bad. And as long as everybody understands the rules, and whatever the rules are, they
Yeah.
change each family. Each family dynamic have different rules.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So yeah. So I hope that this has been helpful. This 4 steps of life. You know, I'll just go over them real quick again.
Okay.
Listen to your inner voice and acknowledge your feelings. Identify those feelings. Find out why. Question your feelings and engage in change and take action. And you can see those are the things I did on my own for when I had that issue. And I look at that as a defining moment, because I was already figuring myself out and learning. So that was kind of like almost like a graduation ceremony for me, by me telling her, thank you for not divorcing me. Of course,
Yeah.
like I said, just because I graduated doesn't mean I'm not learning still.
What, right. As you should, like we've agreed on before, we should constantly be learning and growing and evolving.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. All
Yeah.
right.
But I think, I love talking to you. I feel like
Thank you.
every bit of knowledge you give me is always wonderful. And I think that my listeners will definitely benefit from this information too. Like we said, it doesn't have to be, it doesn't have to apply to any specific type of relationship,
It's everything. It's all kinds of relationships coming in and out of
Absolutely.
your life.
Yeah.
And really, my whole coaching is about understanding your mindset, going from lack to abundance, from self-conscious to self-aware, what we talked about last time,
Yeah.
so that you can be the best you possible, so that when these things come up, you're not reacting to the situations and 100% of the time, maybe only reacting 5% of the time, and
Yeah.
you're responding the other 95% of the time.
Yeah.
And it may be 100 in the beginning and then go down to 85, and so it's like I said, muscle memory. And
Yeah.
it's part of my card deck, Warrior to Warrior card deck, which they could get for going to connectwithmartin.com.
I'm going to take this as a challenge to myself to take these 4 steps specifically in my parenting and with my fiance. I feel like we do pretty good about communicating, especially even when we don't agree on things. We can agree to disagree, but I'm going to take this as a challenge to utilize these 4 steps, put them into place when I have any kind of emotional reaction to something. And I'm going to I'll let you know how
Great.
that goes when we reconvene next month.
Fantastic. Great. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
All
And
right, cool.
I encourage my listeners to take that challenge too. Take these steps. If there's one person or one situation where you find yourself, you kind of get riled up pretty easily in this, situation or with this person, take that challenge, take those 4 steps and see, it doesn't have to be the whole month. You could do it a week, whatever. I say a month because that's when we'll be back on here together again. But, take that challenge, take these 4 steps, and implement them in your relationships, and let me know on the podcast page or Podbean, wherever you listen, you can, or email, whatnot. Let me know how you implemented it and how it impacted your life. I'm interested, and
Me too.
I'm gonna put those resources for you guys for the website and the freebies and the card deck, the card deck I urge you to get. I'm like a sticky note all over the house, sticky note and dry erase boards kind of person. And so for me, something like that, I have this stack of like note cards that everyone in the house, for my birthday in 2020, they wrote stuff down to me on a note card. And so I have it as a stack in my purse. And I pulled it out today just randomly. And I'm looking at the front one and I was like, oh, it just made me feel so wonderful.
Yeah.
And I would imagine that having that deck of cards and you're in a situation and you're pulling it out and you're like, you know what, here's this advice, this wisdom and guidance on this card, perfect for this situation or perfect for just randomly, having thoughts.
Yeah.
I think that it would be a fabulous thing to have.
Let us know.
Yeah.
And if you've got questions and if you got questions about what we're talking about and you'd like some clarity, let us know. Thank you so much.
Absolutely. Thank you for being here. And as always, I had so much fun and I can't wait till the next time. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Visit www.philolity.net, that's FALOLITY, where you can purchase your own copy of Surviving Mom Brain and Dad Brain workbooks, as well as my autobiography.
Adios, mi amigos.